Yogurt may be one of humanity's happiest accidents. Today on Kitchen Alchemy, I'll be showing you the 7,000-year history of yogurt, exactly how to make 24-hour yogurt, and why that fermentation time matters for gut health. Going back around 7,000 years ago, herders in Mesopotamia and Central Asia carried milk in animal skins. The warmth of them carrying next to their bodies and animals' bodies, the motion that was made while they traveled, and the natural bacteria transformed it into something thick, tangy, and most importantly, safe to eat. Yogurt became one of the original travel foods. It preserved the milk. It was a way of preserving the milk so they could take it with them on trips. Mongolian warriors led by Genghis Khan were told to drink fermented mare's milk, believing it gave them strength and courage. In Turkey, where the word yogurt actually comes from, yoğurmak, which meant to curdle or thicken, yogurt is served with everything. Fast forward a few thousand years. Yogurt had already circled the globe, but no one knew why it worked. Then in 1905, Bulgarian doctor Stamen Grigorov finally put yogurt under the microscope and discovered the bacteria that make it what it is. Lactobacillus bulgarius and Streptococcus thermophilus. By law, any product labeled yogurt must contain both of those strains. We saw other things. France brought yogurt into pharmacies as medicine. By the early 1900s, yogurt had traveled the world, but it was about to take on a brand new identity. In Paris, Russian-born biologist Ilya Mechnikov was studying why certain Bulgarian villagers lived exceptionally long, healthy lives. Working at the Pasteur Institute, he believed the answer was in their daily fermented milk, what we now call yogurt. He theorized that these beneficial bacteria helped suppress what he called putrefactive microbes in the gut, the ones he believed contributed to aging and disease. Mechnikov's ideas caught fire. His public lectures in Paris around 1904 to 1907 inspired a wave of fascination with what people called Bulgarian milk, promoted as the new scientific remedy for longevity. Yogurt wasn't just a food, it was a medicine. By 1905, French pharmacies began selling yagur, live cultures, powders, and tablets, all marketed to improve digestion and extend life. Mechnikov's research directly inspired entrepreneurs like Isaac Carasso, who in 1919 founded Danone in Barcelona. His yogurt was sold in pharmacies as a medicinal product based on Mechnikov's work. By the late 1930s, yogurt had started to capture attention in the United States. It was even featured in the 1939 New York World's Fair as part of the World of Tomorrow exhibit, presented as a modern international health food. Just a few years later, Isaac's son Daniel Carasso brought Danone to New York, renaming it Dannon for the American market. Dannon introduced yogurt to grocery stores for the first time. First, it was a tangy health product. Then later, it became the sweet fruit on the bottom version that a lot of us grew up with. That moment marked the beginning of yogurt's transformation from a regional tradition to a global food phenomenon, and set the stage for how we think about probiotics and gut health today. Fast forward a century, and yogurt is everywhere. In Turkey, yogurt accompanies savory meals. In Greece, it is strained into the creamy style that so many of us love. And India has its dahi and its lassi beverage. Africa has amasi. Iceland makes skyr. And Latin America enjoys kuahada. In Japan, you'll find Yakult, a fermented milk drink inspired by the same beneficial bacteria that is in yogurt. In China, there's Suan Nai, a traditional drinkable yogurt. And in Mongolia, you can get kumis, also known as irag, a fermented mare's milk that harkens back to those days of Genghis Khan. Wherever you go, you'll find a version of fermented milk made for nourishment, comfort, and community. And that brings us right back to the kitchen. where we still do what those early scientists and cultures discovered, transforming milk into something that supports digestion and overall well-being. Now let's go make some yogurt. What equipment do you need to make yogurt? It's pretty easy. You need a way to heat up the milk to 180 degrees, which you can do on your stovetop or in an Instant Pot, which I will be showing you here in a minute. You need a vessel to put your milk in after you've cooled it down below 110 degrees. You need a way to keep it between 100 and 110 degrees for 24 hours while you ferment it. So for a lot of people, that might be a yogurt maker, which is what I have back here. It could be an Instant Pot, and some people use a heating pad or a pilot light. You just need a way to keep it warm for the 24 hours. You also need a thermometer, so you can check the temperatures while you're heating it and when you cool it. Fermentation for 24 hours, why do we do it so long? Well, the reason for that is that commercial yogurts are fermented typically between 4 hours and 8 hours. What the big difference is that with the SCD 24-hour yogurt, it consumes the lactose, so it's virtually lactose free. You'd have to test it to know for sure that it was 100% lactose free, but we do consider it should consume. It only takes about 18 or 19 hours to consume all the lactose in a half gallon of milk when you're fermenting it. So at 24 hours, that's pretty ideal to make sure all the lactose has been consumed. You can ferment it up to about 29 hours. After 29 hours, it'll still be safe to eat, but the probiotics will change and you won't have the same balance because some will start to die off. So to get started, I'm going to heat my milk. So I like to heat my milk in my Instant Pot, but you can do it on the stove if you like. It's totally fine since I have the Instant Pot and since it has the yogurt function where I hit boil. That is how I do it. Doing this in the Instant Pot without the lid on, it doesn't usually get to the 180 degrees, so then I will go ahead and put this on saute. And then this only takes a few minutes. Another question I see and get all the time is, what happens? I boiled my milk by accident. Did I ruin it? Can I not make the yogurt with it? Probably it's fine. The main reason to not boil is that we don't want it to get to boiling. Is not that boiling ruins the milk automatically. It's that it can burn the milk. So if your milk is burnt or scalded, it won't work. It won't taste good. Do not use it if you burn it. But just reaching that boiling point doesn't automatically burn it. I've done that by accident tons of times, but I've never scalded my milk. So if it starts to bubble and boil a little bit, just immediately remove it from the heat, and it should be fine. So even if your milk is ultra pasteurized, heating it to 180 degrees Fahrenheit changes the protein structure. It also ensures that you don't have bad bacteria anyway. But it denatures the whey proteins, so they bind more tightly when the yogurt sets. So that gives you the nice thick yogurt. I like to use most of the time grass-fed whole milk. You can use any milk you like, and it does not have to be grass-fed. You can use whatever milk works for you. A couple principles of this: the higher the fat, the less tart the milk is. It also sets up much thicker. So lower fat milks, 2%, 1% skim, will give you much thinner yogurt. You can also use half and half, which makes great yogurt, very thick and less tart. I love making yogurt with half and half. It's great, especially if you want to make some frozen yogurt. That's all up to you. It depends on what the fat intake you want is, but whole milk is great for just your all-purpose eating yogurt on a daily basis. 2% if you need to watch your fat level. Like I said, 1% skim, those don't make a very good tasting yogurt. And if it definitely doesn't taste good, I know I don't tend to eat it. So you need to figure out what's going to work best for you on that. When it comes to your starter, what you need is a yogurt, or sometimes there's a powdered starter you can get that has the 2 strains I mentioned. And if you're on the Specific Carbohydrate Diet, those are the only strains that you can really use. Most commercial starters have other bacteria cultures in them, and so you'll have to use your judgment. I do use one that has Bifidobacterium, which is excluded from SCD Diet, and I've talked a lot about it in other videos, so if you want to do a little research, I will put some links there for you. But in a nutshell, you just need the 2 yogurt strains, and then you can use your judgment on what other strains work for you. And that's kind of just to keep it simple, that's all you really need. So to cool it, we want to get it down below 110, but I actually like to get it much lower than that. I find that it gives a nice creamy, less tart flavor, and especially if you can rapid cool it, as I'm doing, you can put it in an ice bath, and I use little ice packs as my ice, and then that only takes about 15 minutes. So I got it down to 95 here, and that's fine. Sometimes I'll go even lower, down to around 88 or so. But you need to have it below 110. Time to whisk in our starter. I whisked my starter yogurt a little bit. Now I'm pouring in some of the cooled milk, just about a cup, and I'm going to whisk that until it's smooth before I add it to the rest of my cooled milk. Now I'm just going to add that in there, and I'm going to whisk that to get it all mixed in. Now I just need to pour it into my Louvel jar, and if you're using Instant Pot, you can just pour it directly into the inner pot. If you're using a yogurt maker like this one, you'll need to put the jar into a water bath while it's fermenting. I'm going to go ahead and set my temperature here. On this yogurt maker, there is a huge range, but for our yogurt, we want between about 98 and 108. For our temperature, I typically do 98. A lot of people do 100. So that's the range. You can choose how you like to do it. Now I'm going to go ahead and set our time. So I'm going to set this at 24 hours, and that is the right fermentation time for this yogurt. You can go way above that. As you can see, this yogurt maker goes up to 36. So you just want to put this at 24 hours and set your time. While our yogurt ferments, we'll go over some of my biggest yogurt FAQs. Another question I get frequently: heating it, cooking with it, or freezing it, making frozen yogurt. Does that kill the bacteria? Freezing. Biggest misconception I see is that people think freezing your yogurt is going to kill all the bacteria. This is actually not the case. Freezing does not kill bacteria, it makes it go dormant. And then when you heat it up, which is like putting it in your mouth to eat it when you're making frozen yogurt, it will wake up the bacteria and you'll still get the good benefits from it. It depends also how long you're freezing it. Now when I make frozen yogurt, I'm eating it within the week. It's still going to have a lot of that bacteria. If you're freezing for, months, yeah, the bacteria may not survive that. So that's pretty simple. Freezing is okay. Heating, on the other hand, will kill bacteria. If you're going to use it to cook, just keep that in mind. You're not going to probably use all the yogurt for cooking, but I do it all the time. You're probably not going to want to only use your yogurt that way, then you're never going to get the bacteria. So heating does kill, freezing does not. All right, I moved into my office so I could talk a little bit more about those FAQs that I've been getting. Why are we using yogurt to make yogurt? I get that question a lot. I see it all the time, and that is just because that's an easy way to get the cultures that we want to start it. You don't have to use commercial yogurt to start with. There are lots of powdered yogurt starters you can buy. You can choose what kind of starter you'd like to use, but using a little bit of yogurt to make yogurt is the easiest way to do it. Why aren't we using our homemade yogurt as starter for the next batch? This is kind of a complicated question. You might hear people say because the probiotics degrade. I think that's actually what it says in Breaking the Vicious Cycle, but that's not exactly what's happening. Because in ancient cultures they just reused their yogurt over and over again. That's all they had. But what happens is that is the balance of the cultures is changing. It's not hurting you, but it might not be exactly what you want. It's not as much of a balance, and plus because we're using so few cultures, throughout history when yogurt was made, there was all kinds of bacteria. I'm talking about good bacteria, and that was in the yogurt, and there was tons of different strains. Those would keep going, and it would kind of change over time, and the flavors would change, but it was good because it was a huge amount of cultures for your microbiome. And there'd be wild bacteria and wild yeast and all these things in the yogurt that would change it over time and keep producing yogurt. The other thing is there could be a risk of contamination, so we're just trying to minimize that. All right, yogurt fails. How many of you have had these? So there's several that I've heard of. One of them is a contamination, and so that's a question I get, and I recently just got, was that aren't you worried about culturing something that's going to make you sick? No, I don't really worry about that, because if you do by accident, if you make sure you clean everything and do all the proper steps, you shouldn't get any contamination. But if you do, you'll see it. Salmonella makes those pink spots. Other cultures will make gray or brownish streaks, and it will smell bad and it will look weird. You'll know if you cultured something bad by mistake, and you'll just throw it out. If you're ever in question about your yogurt, I would not eat it. There are a few things that are okay that can happen. The most common issues with yogurt have to do with temperature. So there are a couple of things. Fermenting at too low of a temperature or way too high of a temperature will make liquidy yogurt. And neither of them you're probably going to want with SCD if you're on SCD diet, because the bacteria will not be correct or the lactose will not be consumed. What happens if the temperature is too low, the bacteria will not multiply in the same way. They will not produce that thick yogurt that we want. It makes kind of a yogurty drink. That's questionable. It's just I don't know if you can have that or not. We don't know if the lactose was used up. The probiotic content is, you don't have to have a certain amount for it to make it SCD legal. It's just that you might not get as much. But what we do want is that the lactose has been consumed and is no longer present in the yogurt. And at a lower temperature, I just can't really say that that happened. A high temperature could also produce a liquidy yogurt that doesn't have anything going on in it, including that the lactose was consumed, because if the bacteria were killed off very quickly, they wouldn't consume the lactose, and they'll also die, and so you'll just end up with liquid, and that's not good to use either. But another common problem is temperature fluctuation. So I had this happen once when there was something wrong with my outlet, and it heated up my water. It overheated in the yogurt maker, and I could tell that the water was very hot, but it wasn't hot enough to kill everything. So what I had was a ton of liquid at the top. And what happens in that case is that the temperature probably fluctuated, so it's caused the proteins in the yogurt released a lot of liquid as they're breaking down, but it was also not hot enough to kill everything, so the yogurt still set. So I had a lot of separation. In that case, I still ate it. The other thing that I see a lot is a grain. It kind of looks a little grainy or a little bit lumpy. If it looks okay and smells okay, and that's the case. Now, it could be because it didn't get whisked properly with the starter, but more often when you get like that really grainy, lumpy look, it's because the temperature fluctuated as it was fermenting, and so it didn't set evenly. It didn't produce the yogurt in even thickness. It most likely got a little bit too hot while it was fermenting, and so it created a grainy texture. It's probably still okay to eat in that case. And if you drip it, if you strain it, it'll probably improve the consistency. But that is what's happening. So if you see that happening a lot, check the temperature while it's fermenting. See if you can see if there's anything going on there and make some adjustments if needed. Straining yogurt. Some people think that you need to strain it as a requirement. It isn't. I only strain it when I want a recipe, because straining it reduces the volume by quite a bit, and then I have to make more yogurt because you're using it a lot faster. But if you like it that way, feel free. That's totally fine to strain it, but it's not a necessity. Sterilization. I'm not going to say not to sterilize. You definitely should have a very clean container. So my container is only ever used for yogurt. There's never anything else in it. I wash it very thoroughly and dry it when I am done with the yogurt. So I don't sterilize this jar every time I use it. But if you are using a jar or bowl or whatever container you're using to ferment in for more than yogurt, I would definitely sterilize it every time. If it makes you feel better to sterilize a jar, like we talked about, are you worried that you're going to culture something bad, something pathogenic, and make you sick? If you're worried about that, there's no harm in pouring some boiling water through your jar. It's been 24 hours. Yogurt is done, so let's take a look at it. There we go. Nice and firm. Nice and set. Some water condensation on the top, but that's totally normal. little bubbles. That's also totally normal. It's just from a little bit of air in there from stirring the milk, but it looks great. All right, let's try the homemade yogurt. It's just really good. I love it. I've loved it ever since I started making it over 20 years ago. Great for breakfast, great for dessert, great for a snack, good for frozen yogurt, good for a smoothie. So versatile, such an essential part of my gut health for over 25 years. So let me know, do you make your own yogurt? What's your experience? How do you like to do it? Let me know in the comments, and come back for the next episode because we'll be traveling to ancient Greece because we know they love their yogurt. So what else did they know about gut health? Can't wait to share that with you.